Welcome to Real Estate of Mind, a Farbman Group podcast. Welcome to another edition of Real Estate of Mind. I'm Andy Gutman with the Farbman Group, and today I have the good fortune to be talking to R.J. King. Now, Mr. King is editor of DBusiness Magazine, a Detroit historian, and an amazing storyteller. R.J., thank you so much for being here today. For those few people who have not seen it yet, Detroit, Engine of America, your latest book, can you tell everyone what the book is about?
Sure. Thanks for having me on your podcast, Andy. Appreciate it. The book, Detroit, Engine of America, really for the first time tells the story chronologically of how the city went from a French fort on the riverfront in 1701 and up to 1900, birthplace of the automotive industry. So it's very much a city building book. Walks you through, how we went from a fort to a village to a town to a city, and all the colorful and interesting characters along the way that folks might have heard about, such as Ellen Scripps, R.L. Polk, J.L. Hudson, Mayor Hazen Pingree, Lewis Cass, of course, Antoine Demuth Cadillac.
And RJ, I've got to say, it really is a very comprehensive book on the history of Detroit. I have the good fortune of having my copy. It sits by my desk in my office, and I really need to talk to you about getting some more copies when we're done, so I can give them out as gifts to everybody who loves Detroit. And Detroit it's a hot topic these days as the comeback city. I think we're even beyond the comeback stage where people now recognize it again as being one of the top cities to be a part of in the United States. You've played a large part of that. You've been a big part of the fabric of the media of Detroit in your entire career. And so why was it important to write a book about the history of that? Why is it meaningful to you?
Well, I think what I wanted to do was get this information out there in an easy to digest format that people could really understand and appreciate Detroit. From a global perspective, like I said, the city was founded in 1701. It is the oldest city in the Midwest, so it's older than, Chicago, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh even. And it's older than the country, and had the world's first fair. So in 1889, we had the Detroit Exhibition Fair down by where the Ambassador Bridge is, so the convergence of the Rouge and the Detroit rivers. And, when the Erie Canal opened up in 1825 and massive amount of people started to move westward, really the only place you could come to load up on supplies and either stay here or keep moving west was Detroit. And people found out pretty quickly, upstate New York at the time in the mid-1820s was the stove capital of the world, but people figured out pretty quickly it was a lot easier to wait and get a stove in Detroit than try to haul it on a barge and then ships once you got to Lake Ontario and then through to Lake Erie and then up the river to Detroit. So that brought, thousands and thousands of people to Detroit. The hotels were so overbooked during the summer especially that people just stayed on the ships until housing could be provided or they could find a place to stay. And, all of that set up Detroit beautifully to be this manufacturing powerhouse, which it still is today. You can literally make anything here, and that all goes back to our history, and hence the title of the book, Engine of America, Detroit, Engine of America.
Thanks, RJ. RJ, there are a lot of characters in your book, a lot of rich history there. Were there any characters that stuck out to you as being some of the more interesting people in our city's history?
Sure. One of them was President Ulysses S. Grant. He was here before he was president. Lived in Detroit, basically at 24th Street in Livernois, right by Fort Wayne. He was stationed there from 1849 to 1851, and was really the toast of the town, him and his wife, and they had a little girl, and the house that they lived in has been saved, and it's now at the state fairgrounds. It's going to be refurbished and put over on the eastern edge of Eastern Market sometime later this year. And Ulysses S. Grant, there was horse racing was a very popular thing back in the 1840s and 1850s. Obviously, there wasn't a lot of radio or television. There was just nothing. So a lot of outdoor activities became people's pastime and recreation time. So he had the fastest horse in the city. He was a great athlete and was celebrated. He didn't really drink too much. He was warned early on when he was in Detroit not to drink too much. But, over time, he got stationed over in upstate New York and then all the way over to Portland. And he started drinking, and so he was given the choice of either being court-martialed or resigning his commission. He resigned his commission, and then the Civil War broke out in 1861, and he convinced the governor of Illinois to give him the leadership of a brigade, and he just fought and fought and fought. And some of the other generals under Lincoln were biding their time, hoping to run against him for the 1864 election, but Grant would have none of that. And Lincoln was so fond of him that he eventually promoted him to the head of the U.S. Army. After the war was over, Grant returned to Detroit for a 5-day celebration that I would have loved to have been a part of. And he eventually went on to be U.S. president, and people said, and I think it's commented in the book, that whenever the subject of Detroit was brought up to President Grant, his eyes just lit up, and he embraced that person and really just wanted to talk about the city and the people. So that gives you a good idea of just how much Detroit was loved, and just the wonderful nature of the people and the friendship and the camaraderie that they enjoyed and shared.
That's great, and it's just one of the many people that you talk about in your book, and just a fascinating story. RJ, what lessons from your book would help today's business professionals?
I think there's many examples in the book of team building, especially when there was a crisis in that era of Detroit from 1700 to 1900 roughly. One of the most heartbreaking experiences is if a fire broke out. Everything was made of wood. The fire equipment wasn't all that great. And so literally people would have to come together, even if they didn't like each other. I think everything was put aside to get those fires out, to pull some of those blocks of homes literally down so the fire couldn't spread that way. I mean, it was just near panic. But people just had to rally and work as a team and not worry about what other people thought of them or what they thought of other people. And I think that lesson is very good for today when a company is faced with a crisis, when a company is getting a new product together. Really pull everybody together on a team and get all of their ideas. You'll never know if you pass something up, if you didn't have those team building sessions and ask for input as you're delivering a new service, a new offering, launching something new. And just think back about how hard it was in the old days to get things to move forward. Today it's so much easier with the internet and the instant calls and all the great things that we have in terms of technology. But that team building, I think, is really a lesson that everyone could use today.
And it does resonate today. At Farbman, we spend a lot of time focused on building a team, building buy-in to what we're trying to accomplish for our clients and for our own employees on a daily basis. And in reading your book, you definitely can see that the importance of it. It used to be there was a day when you could run a company as a top-down organization and you'd simply dictate what occurs. And I think some of the aspects of building that team with you, that everyone feels like they have a place at the table, goes so much further in getting buy-in from your entire company. And that's a great lesson that came out of your book, and that I think comes out of Detroit's rich history. RJ, if people want to get a copy of your book, Detroit, Engine of America, how do they go about doing that? What's the best way?
Well, we set up a website called DetroitEngineOfAmerica.com. That takes you directly to the book buying page. Or you can reach out to me via email at rjking@dbusiness.com.
I think that's great. And I will tell you, as an avid reader of DBusiness and truly a fan of yours, RJ, watching over the years, media in general doesn't always get the best reputation, but I've often found that whenever your name is mentioned among great media people, there's such a respect for what you do. You are truly one of the area's legendary media icons, and I feel very fortunate not only to have you on our show today, but to have you coming to talk about your book down in the beautiful city of Detroit, Thursday, September 5th, 5 to 7 p.m. at New Center 1. I think it's going to be, we're running out of space there, but I will tell you, the crowd is anxious and excited to see you.
Well, great. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, RJ. Ladies and gentlemen, again, RJ King. We've had the good fortune of talking to Mr. King today, but we have the better fortune of having RJ King come and spend some time with us down at New Center 1, Thursday, September 5th. RJ will be talking from 5 to 7 outside of the glorious and amazing New Center 1 building down on 3031 West Grand Boulevard in Detroit. And RJ will be talking about his incredible new book, Detroit, Engine of America. RJ, everyone's excited. We have a full roster of people attending. I think it's the who's who of the Detroit city, and all of the dignitaries are coming to this because they want to hear you speak. So it's going to be an amazing time. There's still a few slots left open, but not many. So if you want to RSVP, contact us at www.farbman.com for information. Join us next time for another wonderful edition of Real Estate of Mind, a Farbman Group podcast.